And welcome. In today's video, we are going to be doing some subtle but powerful strengthening through yoga. We will be using one yoga block with the option to use two, but definitely one. We're going to be using it a lot. If you don't have a yoga block, you can take a towel and roll it up and put some rubber bands around it. We're looking for something that's about 3 to 4 inches wide. So you can get creative. Let's get started. We're going to start on our hands and knees. I like to put a blanket down for some padding for my knees. Just feels a little bit better. That's optional. Up to you. You can use a towel or anything you have handy. And we'll come into tabletop pose. So hips directly over knees, shoulders directly over wrists. Spread your fingers wide and press into your knuckles. So press into this area of your hand. It'll take some pressure off of wrists. And we're going to start by doing some gentle cat-cows. Make sure you're pressing down through your fingers and knuckles. Press all of the air out. And on an inhale, shine your heart forward and look just in front of your mat. And you can pop your tailbone up a little bit here. Arch your back towards the mat. Exhale, press your belly button up towards the sky. Arch your back towards the ceiling. Dip your chin. Inhale as you come into cow. You can pop your tailbone up just a little bit. Open your chest and heart forward to the front of the room. Exhale. Arch your back up towards the ceiling. Dip your chin. Pull your belly button up. Aim your tailbone down towards the space between your heels. Do this a few more times at your own pace. As you come into cow, make sure that you're not craning your neck. Just look forward to the front of the mat and think about just opening up across your heart. We'll get our spines moving a bit here. And we'll come into some back strengthening. So you're going to take your right foot back and then lift it up. Make sure that that foot doesn't come higher than your hips. It doesn't need to be any higher. That puts unnecessary strain on your low back muscles. Flex that foot. So really put some power into that back foot and then raise the opposite arm overhead. So we're balancing here. If that's not comfortable, you can keep both hands to the mat, but I want that back leg to have a lot of power in it. Really reach, fingers and toes in opposite directions, and then we're going to do 3 crunches. So on an exhale, you'll bring elbow to knee, inhale long, exhale elbow to knee, inhale long, one more, inhale long, and then go ahead and take those down, sway your hips, maybe roll out the wrist that you were putting weight on, and we'll come to the opposite side. So this time take your left foot back. Really engage that foot. Those toes are pointing straight down towards the ground. Make sure you're pressing into the knuckles and spread out your fingers wide on that opposite hand. And then reach forward. Take a breath here. Feel as if somebody's pulling your fingers and toes in opposite directions. And then on an exhale, we'll do 3 crunches. Exhale, knee to nose. Inhale long. Knee to nose. Inhale long. Knee to nose. Inhale long. Go ahead and set that back down. Sway out your hips. Maybe roll out that wrist that you were putting weight on. And from here, tuck your toes under. So you're going to have your toes tucked under. And from here, press up. So press your shoulders and your chest away from the mat. Spread your fingers out wide. And we're going to just lift our knees about 2 inches off the mat. Notice what your core muscles are doing here. See what you can feel. Make sure that you're not dumping down in between your shoulders. Press your shoulders away from the mat. Go ahead and lower that down. Take your knees wide to the edges of the mat, toes touching. Sink back into child's pose for just a moment. You're welcome to put your forehead on a block here if that's more comfortable. And your arms can be wherever they need to be. We'll take a minute here. Just connect with our breath. Breathe in and out. In this pose, notice where you feel your breath. What parts of your body are moving on the in-breath and the out-breath. And then put your hands down right next to your head. Press up into tabletop pose again. Keep your blocks at the front of your mat. Tuck your toes under, and we're going to press up into downward facing dog. So from here, toes are tucked under, fingers are spread really wide. Press into your fingers and knuckles, and then lift your hips up towards the ceiling. You can keep your knees bent if that's comfortable. The priority here is having a nice long spine. So aim your tailbone towards the back wall where the wall and the ceiling meet. Press away, and then think about, instead of letting your ribs just collapse down, think about tightening up a corset on the front of you. Engage those abs and pull those ribs in the front. Maybe straighten your legs if that's comfortable, or pedal out those legs one at a time. And then on your next inhale, walk forward to the front of your mat. Come into a half lift. So a nice long back here. Your hands can be on your thighs or shins. And take a breath. Think about opening up across your chest. Your gaze is straight down at the mat. Exhale, bend your knees a little bit. Come into a forward fold. And inhale, circle your arms down around and up. And exhale back down to mountain pose. If you have a blanket out or a towel, go ahead and set it to the side. And in mountain pose, I want you to feel something, because this is really interesting. Feet are parallel, about hip width apart. Shoulders are just slightly down and back. Relax your shoulders. Your core, these front ribs, pull them in like you're tightening up a corset. And ground your feet into the mat. Now, without moving your feet, don't let them move on the mat. Think about drawing your heels in towards each other. So if these are your feet, think about pulling your heels towards each other without actually moving. Notice what muscles engage there. The whole inner column of our legs, when you pull your heels together, that whole inner column and inner thighs will engage and activate. And that's really important because our quads tend to be really bullies and our inner thighs tend to be a lot weaker. So this class, we're going to really focus on using those inner thighs. Let's do a couple of sun salutations or sun breaths just to get moving. Inhale, circle your arms up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Put a little bend in your knees if that's comfortable. Inhale to a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, circle sweep your arms down, around, and back up. And exhale, back down to mountain pose. This time we'll do a sun salutation A. Inhale up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to a nice long spine. Exhale, forward fold. Put your hands on the mat and step back into a plank. This can be either on your toes or on your knees. It's up to you. Engage your core. Tighten up that pretend corset that we have in the front. Your shoulders are directly over your wrists. And then using your toes or your knees, if you're on them, rock forward and then lower down, keeping your elbows towards your ribs all the way down. We're going to do some really nice low back strengthening here. So watch first. I want you to see what this looks like before you do it so that you don't kink your neck. So we'll start with forehead down and hands on low back. And what we're going to do is at the same time lift up your forehead, swing one arm in front of you and the opposite leg up. And then exhale back down and then inhale the opposite arm and the other leg up. So go ahead and give this a try. Let's do 3 of these on each side. So inhale as you rise up and exhale as you lower down. It's very subtle, but it's a really powerful way to strengthen your low back muscles. Inhale up, exhale down. Inhale up and exhale down. Go ahead and bring your hands right next to your chest. We're going to press up into tabletop pose. Tuck your toes under and lift those hips up into downward facing dog. Pedal out your legs again. Take a deep breath here. And then on your next inhale, walk your feet forward to the front of your mat. Half lift. Exhale, forward fold. And inhale, circle sweep all the way around. And back down to mountain. So now we're going to do a sun salutation A in the more traditional way. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. You can always put a bend in your knees if that's more comfortable. Inhale to a half lift, a nice long spine. Open up across your chest. Exhale, forward fold. Hands to the mat. Step back to plank. And let's hang out here for just about 10 or 15 seconds. Remember to spread your fingers wide. Press into your knuckles and your fingers. Push away from the mat, so don't dump your shoulders down between. Push up and away. And then whether you're on toes or knees, Rock forward and chaturanga down, keeping your elbows towards your sides. Keep your hands right where they're at. Take the tops of your feet and the tops of your toes to the mat and press so hard that your kneecaps lift off. From here, you can come up into a cobra using your low back muscles. You can raise your arms off the ground to see what that feels like, or you can take your hands out wide and make these little spidey fingers and lift up even more. Make sure that your low back is doing some of this work, not all of your arms. Exhale, lower down. Hands to the mat, tuck your toes under. You're gonna press back up to downward facing dog. Pedal out your legs one at a time. Bend one knee, then the other. Press in through your fingers and knuckles. If this is not comfortable for your shoulders, you can take your hands wider at a slight angle and it'll open up more space inside of your shoulder joints. Think about bringing your chest towards your knees, but remember to not dump into your abs here. Keep your abs engaged and core tight. And then inhale, walk your feet forward to the front of the mat into a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, circle sweep down, around and up. Exhale, back down to mountain pose. Now grab that block. We're going to work on inner thighs. So our inner thighs tend to be a lot weaker. This is a really great way to strengthen that, and we're going to do more at the end of class as well. So come into mountain pose where you can have your feet wide enough to put a block right between your thighs, like this. Squeeze that and notice your inner thighs engage and kind of activate, get strong. From here, what we're going to do is come into chair pose. So you're going to sink down on an exhale. Make sure that you can look down and see your toes and then lift up through your chest. Broaden across your collarbones and keep those inner thighs squeezing on that block. You can bring your arms out in front of you, or you can take your arms up high. You can come into goalpost shape, or just keep them at heart center. Your choice. Feel that. Your legs are working really hard here. Remember to keep upright and to not round your back forward. And we'll come back up. Keep that block there. Raise your arms up overhead. Exhale down. We'll do that one more time. Circle arms up overhead. Sink back into chair. Choose whatever arm position you want. Really feel that. And then bring your hands in front of you. Squeeze that block with your thighs. Keep your shoulders open across the top. On an exhale, bring one arm behind you. And then inhale forward. Exhale the other arm behind you. And inhale forward. Now we'll do the same thing again, or we'll add a twist. So bring that one arm behind you and you can take that opposite arm down to your thigh. Make sure that your knees stay together and that one knee is not jutting out in front of the other. Inhale both arms forward. Take the opposite arm back and you can stay right here or bring that other hand down to the opposite thigh. Inhale both hands forward and go ahead and rise up. Take that block out. We'll give our legs a little break. Shake out your legs. We're going to add a little bit of balance here, and then we're going to go into some lunges. So for balance, tree pose, you can be wherever you need to be on your mat. Find your mountain pose. We'll start right here. Think about shifting your weight onto your right foot. Lift up those toes, spread them out and set them back down again. Kind of shift around, find your center. Your left foot can either stay right here as a kickstand, or you can bring it to the inner thigh, inner calf, or up to the inner thigh. A good middle ground is to just bring that foot onto the calf. Please don't put it directly over the knee. That's not a good thing to do. Knees aren't meant to have sideways pressure on them. Hands on hips, and now think about, is your standing leg hip jutting out to the side? Think about pressing up so that your hips are level. And now engage your core. Pretend you have a corset on and somebody's tightening it up in front. Engage that core and pull everything into the midline. You're welcome to stay right here with hands on hips, hands at heart center. Embrace the wobbles. They happen in life and in yoga. If you'd like to grow your tree with me, you can inhale, circle your arms up overhead, palms together, exhale back down to heart center. Really feel your legs working here, but also your core. Don't forget that core. Release your hands and release that leg. Sway it out before we do the other side. Maybe roll that ankle. And we'll come to the opposite side. And you may notice that you balance much better on one side than the other. That's normal. So this time your left foot, lift up your left toes, spread them out and set them back down. Shift your weight onto that foot and sway around till you find your center point. Your right foot's gonna either stay right here as a kickstand, on your calf, or on your inner thigh. Your choice. This is obviously not my good balancing leg, but that's okay. I like the calf. It's just a really nice intermediate point. You choose where it feels best. Now think about this hip of the standing leg. Is your hip bumping out to the side? Try to straighten that hip back up. Engage those legs and engage that core to keep upright. Think about just a tree going straight up. Embrace those wobbles. This is not my good foot. If you'd like to grow your tree with me, you can inhale, circle your arms up overhead. Exhale as you bring your palms back down through heart center. We'll release that, shake it out, roll out the ankle of the leg you were standing on. Now we're going to come back to that block and work on our arms and shoulders a little bit. So come back to the front of your mat and grab a block. Hold on to it. What we're going to do from here is take a nice deep breath in and step your right foot back. So we're coming into a lunge. You're welcome to drop that leg, that knee, down to the ground if you'd like to. Otherwise, up with that knee lifted off the ground. That back leg is stick straight. You're pushing a huge amount of power out that back heel. Take that block between your hands and don't grip it with your fingers. Keep your fingers open and grip that block so that you have to press inwards to keep that block from falling out. Engage your core. Pull all those core muscles into the center and just hold here. If your shoulders are scrunched up by your ears, lower them down. If you'd like to, you can take that overhead. Remember, this is a full body workout right here. A lot of energy in that back leg. The front knee is directly over the front ankle. Find out where you want your arms to be. And then shift your weight a little bit into that front knee, bend the back leg, come back up to the front. You're welcome to lower your arms down for a break if you need to. Otherwise, keep them out and we'll do the other side. So take a big breath in. And on your next exhale, step back into that lunge. Your front knee is right over your front ankle. That back leg is stick straight. You're pushing a whole bunch of energy out of that back heel. If you need to, you can take your feet a little bit wider for more balance. Keeping your fingers open, press into that block to keep it from falling down. Your core is working here. You can keep that straight out in front of you or raise it up overhead. Put a little bend in that back knee, shift your weight to the front foot and come back to the front. Go ahead and lower that block down. It's a lot of work to just hold that block there. It engages all of our arm muscles. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Let's do a little IT band stretch just to give ourselves a little break. So from wherever you're at on your mat, you choose. What we're going to do is take our right foot, cross it over so that your toes are going to try to line up, but they probably won't. That's okay. Try to keep your feet as close together as you can, reversed. And from here, hands on hips, take a big breath in, and then exhale, just bend forward, hinge at the hips. You can bring your hands down to a block, and you might feel a stretch in the outside hip of the leg that's in the back. You might feel a stretch in the back of your knee. If you need to, you can back off. This is a really nice stretch, just as a break for any time. It feels wonderful, and you can do this anywhere, anytime during the day. Inhale back up. Release your feet, wiggle them out, and we'll come to the other side. So this time, opposite foot to the outside. Try to set that heel down. One foot's going to be a little bit in front of the other, and that's fine. Hands on hips, take a big inhale in, and exhale, forward fold. Hands to a block or a chair or to the ground, it's up to you. You might feel a stretch in the outside hip of that back leg, maybe in the hamstring, behind that back knee. Breathe into this. Inhale, come back up to the top. And we'll come back to the top of our mat. We're going to do one more chair with the block. between our thighs. So find a spot where your feet are, where your knees are the same width as your feet. Block in between your thighs. Breathe up nice and tall, and we're going to come back down into that chair pose. So make sure you can look down and see your toes. Your seat is going behind you, and then open up through your chest, hands at heart center. Really try to sink down. You've got this. Squeeze that block between your thighs. You're welcome to just hang out here if you'd like to, or we can add even more of a twist. So if you'd like to do that, bring your hands to the front. Exhale, one arm behind you. And that arm that's in the front, you're going to bring that elbow to the outside of the opposite thigh and bring your palms together. Make sure that one knee is not jutting out in front of the other. You want your knees and hips to stay parallel with each other. The twist happens from your belly button up, not from your hips. Inhale, come back up to the top. Take a deep breath in and out. Squeeze those thighs together. Arms out in front of you. On an exhale, take the opposite arm behind you. Bend that elbow. Bring it down to the outside of the opposite thigh. Palms together. Make sure that one knee is not jutting out in front of the other. The twist is happening from your belly button up. You're not twisting from your hips. Press your palms together. Come back up. Go ahead and release that block. Come out of bridge pose, chair pose. From here, we're going to come into a deep squat, malasana. Take your feet wide. If you have any knee issues, I would advise not doing this and go ahead and come to seated, and we'll meet you there. If your knees are good, take your feet wide at about a 45-degree angle. We're going to come into a nice deep squat all the way down, trying to keep your heels to the ground. If this is not comfortable, go ahead and take a seat. You can press your elbows into your inner thighs, palms together. Open up across your chest. Open your heart to the front of the room and settle into this wonderful inner thigh stretch. It's really nice to do this since we did a lot of inner thigh work with the block and chair pose. Take a breath here. Really just enjoy this stretch. As you're ready, take your hands down to the mat, sit down, and keep a block nearby because we're not done with it yet. We'll come into butterfly pose. Knees out wide, the soles of your feet together. If you need to, you can tuck a block underneath each knee or a blanket. This butterfly pose is also a really wonderful hip stretch and inner thigh and groin stretch. Sit up nice and tall, maybe sway side to side a little bit. You can flutter your legs if that feels good. And we're going to just fold forward. Just really enjoy this. Again, if you're struggling with your knees, if you feel a lot of tension here, please prop up something under your knees. So take a big breath in, and then on an exhale, we're going to dip our chin and round our back and just walk forward as far as is comfortable. We all have very different flexibility and very different anatomy and bone structure in our hips, and that's going to dictate how far you can come into this pose. Try to think about breathing into your low back, release tension in your spine. And the time to do that is with an exhale. So we'll be here for a moment. If you feel any tension in your low back, take a nice slow inhale. And then on the exhale, think about intentionally letting that tightness go. You can let your head fall heavy here. Just let it hang down. On your next inhale, use your hands to walk back up. We're going to do another little side stretch. So you can shift on your mat however you need to. Keep your blocks handy. We'll take one leg out long and pop those toes up towards the ceiling. Activate the muscles in this foot. The other sole of the foot is going to come to your inner thigh. And you have an option to use blocks here. It's just something that's nice and easy to do. So breathe up nice and tall, and then shift your shoulders so that they're aiming over that extended leg. Try to keep both of your sit bones rooted into the mat. And then we're going to just tip forward a little bit. Try to keep that long spine. Keep open across your chest. It doesn't take very far to feel a lovely hamstring stretch here. If you want to, you can always prop up on blocks. Make sure that that foot on that extended leg is activated. Those toes are pointing straight up towards the ceiling. Now inhale back up tall. And this time we're going to fold and round into it the same way we did in butterfly pose. So breathe up nice and tall. And then you can go ahead and dip your chin and walk forward, round your back a little bit, and see how far you want to come down. I like bringing my forearms to blocks. You find what works best for you. You can let your head fall heavy and lengthen the back of your neck if that feels good. Take a couple of breaths here and just enjoy this stretch. Use your hands to walk back up. Take this bent leg over that knee. So your other foot is on the outside of that knee. Press the ball of that foot into the ground. Sit up nice and tall here. So think about opening up across your collarbones, and we'll come into a twist. So if your left knee is bent, you're going to hold onto that with your right hand and twist behind you. Sitting up tall, the twist comes from your belly button up. So you're not twisting through your hips, just the belly button. Your back hand is just a kickstand. Don't use that to corkscrew your spine further than it wants to go. Make some space between your shoulders and your ears. So lower your shoulders down and just enjoy this twist. If you're really flexy, you can bring your elbow crease to that knee. And again, make sure it's a comfortable twist. Do not overdo this. And we're going to undo that and we're going to switch legs. So this time take your other leg long, bend at the other knee, sole of your foot into the ground. That extended leg, those toes are going to pop up. You're going to really activate that foot. Make sure all of those foot muscles are working. Have your blocks handy if you'd like to use them. So root both sit bones into the ground. Make sure your hips are steady and stable on the ground. Take your shoulders and twist a little bit and aim them over that extended leg. We're going to stay up tall, so don't round in here yet. And then just hinge forward at the hips and fold just slightly towards that raised foot. It doesn't take far to feel that hamstring stretch. You might feel it all the way down through your calf and into your Achilles. Breathe up tall, but lower your shoulders down. You can always put your hands to blocks here as well if that's comfortable. And then we'll come back up. Now we're going to fold into this. We're going to roll forward as far as you'd like to come. It's comfortable for you. So again, shoulders are aimed over that extended foot. And go ahead and dip your chin and just roll forward. Walk your hands forward. You can bring your forearms down to blocks if that's comfortable for you. Find some length in the back of your neck. You can let your head hang heavy here if that's comfortable. And take a few nice deep breaths here and just really enjoy that stretch. Use your hands to walk back up. We'll come into our twist. So this bent knee, bring it up and take that foot to the outside of the opposite leg. Sit up tall. So root both of your sit bones down into the ground and use that to rise up tall. Shoulders are down and relaxed. Your opposite hand will hold onto that bent knee or your elbow crease. It's up to you. Reach the other arm behind you. Make sure both of your sit bones are staying down. You want to twist just from the waist up. That back hand is just a kickstand. Do not use it to corkscrew further than your spine wants to go. And check on your shoulders. Are your shoulders relaxed here? And we'll release that, come back to seated. So come back towards the front of your mat. We're going to do a last little bit of effort before we end. So legs out long, go ahead and shake them out if you need to. If you'd like to, you can come into a forward fold, just round into it, just enjoy the stretch for a moment. You can always bring your head down to a block if that's comfortable. And we'll lift back up. Have a block nearby. We're going to lay down, so go ahead and bend your knees. You can hold on to the back of your thighs and roll down, or for a little bit of core work, the option is to hold your arms out and lower down using your core muscles. It's up to you, however you get down. have a block handy. We're going to walk our heels back so that they get close to our fingertips. Maybe even kind of you can graze the back of your heels a little bit with your fingertips. You want your heels to be pretty much under your knees. Grab that block and put it between your knees again. Squeeze those inner thighs together. Walk your heels back as far as is comfortable for you, and we're going to come into bridge pose. And we'll do this several times. So start by coming into robot arms. So your fingers are pointing straight up and you're going to press your upper arm into the mat. And I want you to think, we're going to lift our hips up towards the ceiling, but what I want you to think about, instead of using your glutes, your butt muscles to lift up, I want you to think about pushing down so hard with your feet that it's going to rise you up. So I want you to use that pressure of downward motion through your feet to lift the hips up. So robot arms, push into the backs of your arms into the mat. Big inhale, and then on an exhale, raise your hips up towards the ceiling. Squeeze those inner thighs together into that block. Press down through your feet, and then lower down. So there's some other arm options. If that's comfortable for you with the robot arms, you can keep your palms down to the mat. And again, think about pressing your feet down to lift your hips up. Lower down. Shouldn't be feeling very much tension in your neck here because you're supported on your shoulder blades and your arms. Do 2 more like this. Squeeze those inner thighs together. Inhale as you lift your hips up. Exhale as you lower down. 1 more. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, lift down. You can go ahead and take that block out. Take your feet wide to the edges of the mat and windshield wipe your knees back and forth. If that feels good, you can continue to do that, or you can pull your knees in towards your chest and rock back and forth a little bit here as well. We're going to do one last little bit of core work before we end. So from here, I want you to take your feet off the mat and make sure, try to keep your knee above your hip. Try to not let your knee come forward towards your chest. This is the hard part. Even right here, just holding this, you should feel your core working right here. It's a lot of work. And what we're going to do is some very slow, controlled bicycles, one at a time. Make sure that those knees don't come forward. They are going to stay no further than your hips. You can take your hands behind your head and lift up slightly. And then we're going to just take one leg down as we cross to the opposite elbow. Come back, down, and back. Nice and slow. The trick here is to keep that knee over the hip and don't pull that knee in towards your chest. Let's do 2 more on each side. And go ahead and lower down. Stretch your legs out long, your arms up overhead. Big, big, big stretch. And then I'm going to ask you to just find a comfortable position. I like to bend my knees with my feet wide and let my knees kind of fall in together. We're going to take a few deep breaths together and then we'll be done. You're welcome to put your hands on your belly so you can actually feel your breath. You're welcome to close your eyes if you'd like to. Just connect with your breath and feel where in your body you're noticing that. Hopefully, you're feeling your belly rise and fall. You could do a quick body scan here. Think about all the muscles that we used. We use some muscles that we don't often use. Inner thighs. By pressing that block between our arms, we did some work on our chest and our pecs and our inner arms. We did some core work, a little bit of balance. I invite you to stay here for as long as is comfortable for you. just enjoy the relaxing, the sensation of knowing that we did some really nice, good, but slow strengthening today. Thank you for joining me on my mat. Namaste.